I love stories. I love when people want to tell me things about their day or about their week or about whatever it is that just is something to sit down and good to listen to. One of my favorite things to do is obviously watch people play games on Twitch, right? Or even YouTube, past fonts. But I love story games. Something out of this world, something that is impossible, high fantasy, or even just modern fantasy, things like the new Silent Hill, if you like horror, or something a little bit more like the game that we played last December, Beacon Pines. That was a good story. I love stories like that. And I love listening to stories. I love telling stories. But I definitely feel like there is a difficulty in trying to focus on the important bits of telling a story. And the way that I like to think about it is, if I had to relive that event, whatever event I'm trying to retell, what are the details that I need to remember? Things such as what I was wearing, or if I was listening to something important, or something specific that I did. Something even kind of like, so a couple of weeks ago was my brother's birthday, and we knew that because the place that my little brother wanted to go to for his birthday for dinner was going to be pretty busy if we waited too long, that the minute he got off work and my mom got off work, we were going to get into the car and we were going to go. We were going to go to this place, and it was going to be an early breakfast. Early dinner. And so we all got ready, and I had an off-shoulder empire waist black dress with the slit on the side, and I had a pair of shorts under it because the slit was kind of high. And I was like, family dinner, don't want anything like that, not with family. But anyways, so we're getting into the car, and as I'm lifting my skirt, I look down and I see what looks like a bank card. And I was like, I didn't drop my card. Like, my card's in my wallet, zipped up, which is in my purse. So I'm like, whose card is that? Is it my mom's? Did she accidentally drop it? So I go in and look at the card, and it's not hers. And just a little bit away from the bank card, I see a driver's license. So I could pick up both cards, and I look around, just make sure there's nothing else. And there was nothing else. So now I have these two cards, and I look at the names on the cards, and it's the same person, and their house is not that far from us. So I get into the car and I tell my mom, since she was the one that was driving, can we go to this person's house so I can drop off their debit card and their driver's license? But it was like scuffed up, and the way that it was damaged made me think maybe the person either did it intentionally or someone stole it, because it looked like it was like they were trying to mess up the card, but it was still legible enough for me to read it. But like, if it was legible, why would the person just throw it on the street? I didn't really know. I didn't want to assume anything about this person, right? There could be tons of reasons why it was as messed up as it was. So anyways, so we get into the car, we go to the person's house, and there's no one home. I'm knocking on the door, no one home, but they have a Ring, which is that camera recording thing that connects to the person's phone. And so I ring the doorbell, they doesn't answer, and no one's answering like on their phone either. So I'm just like, oh, what if something happened and the person like literally is just unable to answer or go and look for their stuff? I don't know, but what I ended up doing was, you can leave a voice message thing on the Ring. So I just said, hey, I found your two cards, I'm gonna put them here in your mailbox. And I looked at the mailbox, and it was one of those like big metal boxes that just like sits on the wall. But when I opened it, it had like like a slit on the inside, and the only way to get your hand inside where the mail was to have a key, but the opening was big enough to like slip letters and stuff like that in. So I was like, oh, perfect. So I opened it and I put the cards in, and that was that. But like, it's such an anticlimactic story, right? There's no way for them to like get a hold of me to find out who I was, to really do anything more. And that is the end of the story. But like, if it was a story that I read in a book or like a short story, most of the time people would continue on with something else happening, something more happening, some kind of like fantastical meeting where it's just like, oh, it's that person, and like we become amazing friends or whatever, right? But that's not real life. And I think, as great as stories are, we do have to sometimes pull ourselves back from them to remember that we're in a reality where things like that don't really happen. Sometimes amazing things like that do happen. Like when I was in college, it was a rainy day and I had my umbrella, but I left it in my car because I was already running late for class. So I went to class, but it wasn't raining during that lesson, right? About 2.5 hours later, maybe 3 hours, depends on how long the class was, I don't remember. I walked out of class and it was pouring rain. Now, I had my rain jacket on, so my clothes weren't getting wet, but I didn't have anything for my head. I didn't have a hat, I didn't have a scarf, nothing. So I'm holding my backpack over my head, trying to get from one building to the next so that I can go to my next class. And now, if this was a fantasy story that you read online or you see in an anime or a movie, someone, most likely a boy, right, would come over and offer me his umbrella and walk away. So something similar actually did happen. And there was a boy who walked over. He didn't hand me his umbrella. What he did was he got close, he put his arm around my shoulder, and he was like, I'm sorry, but I want to help you get to your next class. What building are you going to? So I told him what building I was going to, and both of us huddled under this little umbrella, walked over to the next building, and he escorted me into the class to make sure that I got there okay. And he just left, and I never saw him again. So again, the story ends with an anticlimactic type of idea, right? However, I think it's more precious in that way, right? I think it's more precious in that way because of the fact that it actually happened. If it was fantasy, it would have much more things happening. There probably would be some type of like date, or we would meet again later, or something along those lines. But with this one, there was nothing. What happened was very much fantastical, because people, as kind and amazing as people are, sometimes they just don't do things like that. They unfortunately don't. But you see things like that all the time in movies and books, and I kind of like to think the reason why those little gems of events happen in our daily lives, like the boy with the umbrella, or me finding that lady's credit card, is based on things that we saw in the movie. Like, if I never found that person's card, right, she would be kind of SOL, right? Because it was a driver's license that was not expired. It was a driver's license and a debit card, again, also not expired. But because I saw it in movies and my parents raised me to do the right thing, I was able to find those and give them back to her. And if they didn't even live in my state, if they lived far away, I would have put it in a couple envelopes, put the whole thing in like a small little package and mailed it to them, right? Because no one wants that information out there like that. No one wants their information to be used in that way. So it's the whole treat others as you want to be treated. And I think that says a lot, because we see those things in movies. We see people rush out of the buildings to give somebody an umbrella. I have done that. I have rushed out of work because I see somebody walking from another building, not even one of my students when I used to work at the music center, not even one of my students. I would see them walking out of the building next to us to go to their car, and I would run out with my umbrella to help them get to their car and not worry about the rain hitting their head and getting them soaking wet. Because that could actually get people sick, right? Does it hurt me to go out and do that? No. Was my boss upset that I went out and do that? No. But some people's bosses would be. And it sucks, but I kind of think when we say treat others the way we want to be treated, it doesn't necessarily have to mean just be kind. Yes, be kind, be respectful to some degree, right? Because respect is earned, not just freely given, but there still is some type of level of respect that people need to give to each other. And I think it kind of goes beyond just that. I think it goes even further into, if you want someone to walk you to your lesson because you forgot your umbrella, do that to somebody else. Maybe somebody will see that you did that, or somebody will see it happen regardless, and they'll go do it to you, or they'll go do it to somebody else, and then that person will have a story to tell about how a cute boy or a cute girl or a cute person walked them to their next class in the rain.